Hello and welcome to CadenCenter. It's time for another This Week in Sports. Today it is all about the NBA playoffs. They have finally arrived with the playing games starting Tuesday, April 12th, which is tomorrow, the day I'm recording this. So it should be a good one, and that means it is prediction time for me. I'm going to predict every playing game, every playoff series, every hypothetical playoff series. So let's get right into it with the playing games, and we have the 9-seeded Pelicans going up against the 10-seeded Spurs. Now the Spurs are probably an example of why a lot of people do not like to play in there. A whole lot of games under 500. They've played bad more than they've played good, and it just doesn't feel like they should be there. And then there's the Pelicans, who, after acquiring CJ McCollum, been a good team and have looked like, a 7 seed, a 6 seed, an 8 seed. So maybe they belong to be here. But regardless, this matchup is here, and I do have the Pelicans taking it pretty easily. I do think Greg Popovich is a great one-game coach to have. The Spurs' star point guard DeJounte Murray has been dealing a non-COVID illness the past week that really almost cost them the season if the Lakers had won a couple games. So I do think the Pelicans will take it. I think CJ will have a big game. Brandon Ingram will have a big game. I do like the Pelicans' offense, and I think they will be able to get it done and move on to play the loser of the 7-8 in the West. As we move on to the East half of the 9-10 playing matchups, it's the 9-seeded Hawks going up against the 10-seeded Hornets. Now, the 7, 8, 9, and 10 seed in the East are all separated by one game. So this is where the play-in is perfect, right? Because if you beat a team, you're gaining a point on them. So it's like having a game 83. So the East play-in is definitely going to be much better than the West. And that starts with this matchup. This is going to be a matchup that will probably end with a score of like 130, 120, 140, 130. Both teams have such high-powered offenses. However, I think the Hawks experience will win now. I know the Hornets played in the playing game last year and lost by 30 to a mediocre Pacer team. And I do not think they're ready yet. The Hornets have dealt with some injuries. The Hawks are always seem to have found their identity of being a bad team at the start, and then they're good towards the end. And the last couple weeks of the season, they did find that stride. Trae Young led the league in total points and total assists, just like he did back in college. So he's been playing great. They have Clint Capella, who will most likely expose the weak Hornets centers. Good luck having Montrezl Harrell try to stop Capella on the boards. And I do see the Hawks winning this one, sending the Hornets home in the play-in game once again. As we move to the West 7-8 matchup, we have two surprising teams, maybe you could say, in the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Clippers. Clippers surprising because they don't have Kawhi Leonard. They didn't have Paul George for like half the season, so you think they wouldn't be here. And then the Wolves, they finally figured it out with Cat and D'Lo, and Patrick Beverley has really come in there and built up a culture, and maybe a culture you don't like, gritty, talking in your face, trash talk, all that type of stuff, but they are here. And I think the main reason, well, maybe not the main reason, but one of the main reasons for the Clippers' success is Tyronn Lue. And I think Tyronn Lue will coach the Clippers into a good game. However, I think the Wolves will take it. I think at the end of the day, they do still have more talent. Patrick Beverley, last time they played the Clippers, I think he had a double-double. He had like 12 assists, about 10, 12 points. I think he will have another good game against his former team because he loves to create drama. That's what Patrick Beverley plays basketball for. So I do think the Wolves will take it, and the Clippers will be forced to play a game to get to the 8 seed, which I will get to later. But for now, we move on to the other 7-8 matchup in the East, the Nets and the Cavaliers. The Brooklyn Nets in the play-in. If you told me that during the preseason, I would have been shocked. They were the title favorites. The Lakers were second. They didn't make the playoffs. Now the Nets are here, and they lose 2 games, and they're out. The Cavaliers, Darius Garland, all-star, probably top 3 most improved voting. Maybe we'll win the award. We'll just have to see. The votes are coming in from different media members who are leaking theirs, and we'll find out if he gets that award. Evan Mobley may also be the Rookie of the Year, but the big problem for the Cavaliers is Jarrett Allen has been ruled out for this game. He obviously would have been huge. We know the Nets' defense, interior, and perimeter could both be weak, and he really could have helped exploit that. Jarrett Allen actually used to play for the Nets too, so it could have been a little bit of a revenge game. But without Jarrett, with the way the Cavs have been playing pretty poor, they were the 5-6 seed, even top 3 seed sometimes for most of the season. But they're playing bad at the wrong time in a one-game plan. You just can't have that happen. I have the Nets winning by a pretty decent margin in this one. And we will move back to another matchup with the Cavs, since the Cavs will now become the 8th seed and play the 9-seeded Hawks for the 8th seed. I think this match, I'm going to assume that this matchup goes and Jarrett Allen does not play, just because there's been no real signs of him playing. They didn't, it just doesn't seem like it's going to be ready. Maybe the extra day or two will prepare him. Maybe he'll play through injury. But I mean, without Jarrett, I mean, look, it's Trae Young. He lives for these moments. He's got ice in his veins, and I think he will put a big 30, 40-point performance up on the board against the Cavaliers, and the Hawks will benefit from the plan, and they will go from 9 seed to 8 seed. As we move back to the West, now obviously with the Clippers losing to the Wolves, they become the 8, and they have to play the 9 Pelicans. And this game will be a fun one to watch. You got Herbert, and I think one of the most underrated, if this matchup happens, Herbert Jones needs to get a lot of credit if the Clippers, if the Pelicans do win this game, which I think they will, because he will be tasked with guarding Paul George. Herbert Jones has been a guy the Pelicans have been developing all season. They're looking for him to shoot the jump shot better. He has the confidence too, but obviously you need to hit it. I think he will do a somewhat good job limiting Paul George, at least a good enough job for the Pelicans to be able to win, and we will see another 9 seed shoot up to the 8 in the Pelicans and make the playoffs. And for the Clippers, it with their season ending this way, assuming my predictions are correct, you can't really be mad. I mean, you missed your best player the entire season. You missed your second best player for half the season. You're over here having Reggie Jackson leading your offense, and Tyrone Lue just proved that, he really could be a coach of the year candidate if you really wanted to argue it. So, I mean, the Clippers will be very scary. They traded for Norman Powell and Robert Covington to, Robert Covington, obviously, very good on defense. Norman Powell's offensive game has developed a lot more to overshadow his defensive game. But the Clippers will be very scary next year. But the Pelicans, for now, will be able to move on. So now we will go to the actual playoffs. We will go to the first round. It'll be the 1-seeded Suns against the 8-seeded Pelicans. I see the Suns winning this. I mean, not really much to explain. The Suns are a lot better. Devin Booker's been crazy. Chris Paul is Chris Paul. Mikal Bridges is my DPOI. I'm hearing Marcus Smart will probably take it, but Mikal Bridges is definitely my defensive player of the year. They're going to do their thing. They're going to sweep them, and the Pelicans will have to go home, and hopefully Zion can come back for them next season. The Mavericks versus the Jazz. The Jazz have been playing horrible. This is another example of a team playing bad at the worst possible time. The Jazz are no longer the team that's going to win 60 games and lose in the first round, but they are the team that's going to be the 5 seed and also lose in the first round, as I have Luka Doncic finally winning a playoff series because he's not playing the Clippers, as the Mavericks win in 6. As for the Warriors and Nuggets, Steph Curry will most likely not play game 1, are the rumors, and I think that will be the only game the Nuggets win. I have the Warriors taking it in 5. If Curry is out for games 1 and 2, then I do believe Denver can take a 2-0 series lead, but I just feel like the Warriors, Clay dropped 40 in the last game of the season. I know he's been shaky, but when you have Draymond Green and Stephen Curry, I think that duo has been really emphasized with how Clay's been out and how Draymond changes the game for Steph. Steph changes the game for Draymond. If those two are healthy and playing, I don't think they're first-round exits. And then we go to the 2-7 matchup, which is the Grizzlies versus the team I predicted to get here, the Wolves. This is very interesting because this is a very inexperienced team. We know Karl-Anthony Towns and the Wolves haven't been able to win more than 20 games sometimes, but now they're here. And then we have the Grizzlies, the second best record in the NBA, which is crazy. We did not expect them. We expected them maybe 5 seed, 6 seed, maybe they'll play in for the 3rd straight year, but they have proven that they have insane levels of depth. I think they were 20-2 without Ja Morant this year, which is crazy. 20-2 without your best player is incredible. I think the Grizzlies will win with Ja, take the series in 6 games to move on to round 2. As for the Eastern Conference round 1, we'll have the Heat and Hawks. I think the Hawks will not make a little bit of a miracle Cinderella-ish run this year. Heat will take care of them in 5, although if Jimmy Butler does struggle, the Hawks could take it to 6, maybe 7, but I think the Heat will win either way. Next, we have the 76ers versus the Raptors. Matisse Thybulle will not be able to play in games 3, 4, and 6 if it goes to 6, which I do not think it will. I have the Sixers in 5 in this series, so maybe that could change things. The Raptors are another surprise team. If you would have told me they were the 5 seed, I would have told you I thought Kawhi Leonard got traded back to Toronto. So good for them. They didn't rebuild. They kind of reloaded, and we'll see if they can maybe make some noise in the playoffs against a 76ers team that is looking to win a championship. We move on to the 3 Bucks for 6 Bulls series. To be honest, it's more like a 1-8. The Bulls only won 4 games against top 4 seeded teams. They're just not it. Obviously dealing with injuries to Lonzo. Caruso went out for a little bit. DeRozan was MVP probably for the first half of the season, but that's died down now. I see the Bucks actually sweeping the Bulls, and maybe the Bulls will be back next year where they can beat a team that is in the top half of the league. as we move on to the Celtics Nets, what a series this will be. You have the Celtics who came when the calendar flipped to 2022. I think it was Jaylen Brown who said the energy is about to shift. The energy did indeed shift. They're basically the hottest team in the NBA right now, best defense. But the Nets have two guys that are really good at basketball, and their names are Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. KD struggled against the Pacers in a must-win kind of game to keep them as a 7 seed. And by struggled, I mean he dropped the triple-double. He just wasn't hitting his shots. I mean, I am a little anti-Nets, as a Laker fan and all that stuff, but I can't, hate upon the greatness that is Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. I think they will be able to get it done. Maybe we will see Ben Simmons play, but either way, I have Brooklyn winning this in 7 games, easily the best series of the first round. Move on to round 2 now. We have the Suns and the Mavericks. I think Luka will play extremely well in this series because he does seem to step up against good teams in the playoffs despite who his teammates are. But the Suns they're just so much better than the Mavericks. Just so much more consistent. I have Phoenix in 5, as Phoenix seems to get yet another kind of easy path to the conference finals. Last year they had to deal all these teams that had injuries, and they got it for free almost. So it's interesting how that's developed. But hey, that's what happens when you're the 1 seed. You're going to get good matchups. And then we got the Grizzlies and the Warriors. I think the Grizzlies, like the Mavericks, just aren't ready yet, and this is a very good matchup for the Warriors. Draymond Green, his defensive IQ is incredible. He will be able to tell the Warriors, look, we need to just stop them driving. If they do come in the paint, we foul them. The Grizzlies are not a very good free throw shooting team, which is surprising given they're the second best team in the NBA, and they're not that good of a 3-point shooting team at times. So if they wall up, make the Grizzlies shoot, they will win this series, and they will move on to the Western Conference Finals, and the Warriors are back, to say the least. Moving on to the Eastern part, round 2, we got the Heat versus the 76ers. Pretty much, we have Joel Embiid and James Harden, two of the best offensive guys in the league, versus the Heat, who have, gritty defense. And then you have Tyler Herro dropping 30, so he's a little bit of an outlier. It's Heat culture versus Philly. The fans are always chirping. It'll definitely be a good series. However, I do think the 76ers will take this one in 6 because, as I mentioned in the Heat vs. Hawks series, Jimmy Butler has been prone to struggle, and if Jimmy Butler cannot hit the pull-up mid-range consistently, the Heat offense is nothing. I think Bam will limit Embiid to a certain standpoint, but it's clear at this point you can't limit Embiid. He's either going to get to the free throw line or he's going to give you 30. So it will be rough for the Heat. 76ers will take it in 6. Now we move to the 3 Bucks versus 7-seeded Nets matchup, even though, let's be real, the Nets are not a 7 seed. They are much, much better than that. But I do think the Bucks will repeat last year because they did play in the conference finals last year, and the Bucks will win in 7. It really just comes down to, I feel like the Bucks have less exploitable weaknesses than the Nets. Like, if Ben Simmons is playing in this series and Ben Simmons isn't aggressive, you can't have an offensive outlier against this Bucks team that is crazy on defense. Drew Holiday, Giannis. I think it will go to 7 because KD will just have another one of those series against them. But yeah, I think the Bucks are simply the better team. Less weaknesses, less variables. So they are my pick to move on to the conference finals. Speaking of the conference finals, we have now arrived here as the predictions continue. We have the Suns versus the Warriors, a preseason Western Conference Finals matchup that I feel like quite a few people picked. And I think this one will go to 6, and I think the Suns will take it. And I will be excited because as someone who does not like the Suns, but I do love Mikal Bridges and how he plays, I cannot wait for him to stop Stephen Curry and get all the credit for it when the Suns win in 6. I think he will do well enough on Steph to limit him. Jonathan Kuminga for the Warriors could be an X factor. He's a hustle guy. He can take advantage of this gravity that Steph Curry has. When Steph Curry is being guarded in half court by 2 guys, he's able to take it in, drive, create some offense, kind of like how Draymond Green does at times. I think he can maybe drag this series to 7 with a big game, but I think the Suns in the end will take it in 6. Moving on to the Eastern Conference Finals, the Bucks versus 76ers, another probably preseason pick or at least midseason pick once the 76ers got James Harden. I think this one will go to 7. It's one of the I didn't pick too many series to go to 7, but when I look at this one, I'm thinking there will be 2 big games from Giannis, 2 big games from Embiid. Middleton will have a good game. Harden will have a good game. It'll come down to Game 7, where I think Giannis will do his thing. He will drop 40 points on Joel Embiid, who will most likely be the MVP runner-up, and he will bring the Bucks to the finals to face the Suns. And if that sounds familiar, it's because it is, because it was the matchup last year. All this talk these past 2 years about, the NBA is so wide open, anyone can win. And yet here we are with a finals rematch. And I think that is, maybe I'm being safe here in predicting, but I think it's just the most likely choice, because when I look at the Suns, starting lineup of Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, Jay Crowder, DeAndre Ayton, they now have JaVale off the bench to rebound, so that way they don't have Dario Saric or Frank Kaminsky trying to get rebounds in the NBA Finals. Not to mention Cameron Payne, who has been great. Shamet has proven to be a decent enough piece. I mean, the Suns are just crazy good, and we already know about the Bucks. And as much as I just hyped up the Suns, I think the Bucks are a lot better, because we know they won 4 straight against the Suns. We know Giannis went crazy, and that was Giannis injured, by the way. He was playing through an injury. Yeah, sure, it's a little suspicious. It comes out, months after they win, but I'm believing the guy. And so I think with him fully healthy, pending obviously injuries can happen. The playoffs are 2 months long? Anything can happen. Pending injuries, I think the Bucks will take it in one less game than it took them last year. They will win in 5, and Giannis will win his 2nd straight Finals MVP to go along with the Bucks back-to-back NBA championship. So they will take it, and Chris Paul will fall short once again. And so those are my full predictions from play-in to playoffs. It could get ruined in 4 days if the Nets randomly lose 2 games in a row, but hopefully that does not happen. I'm extremely excited for this year. There's a lot of new faces. There's a lot of old faces as well looking to make some noise. So we will see how it goes. And I will be back soon to recap each round and how the playoffs go. So see you then.